Street, sedate, quiet, well manicured. Several kilometres to the north is Rotorua Road, carrying all the hallmarks of a disaster site with barriers and warning tapes flying. Both streets form opposite ends of a story which has been simmering for more than 10 years. It's a story that's unique to Rotorua. It's a story that's been unfolding over recent weeks here at the District Council chambers, where meetings continue to decide what to do about eruptions of thermal activity in Rotorua Road. And other meetings of the Environment Court have just concluded. In general, the subject matter is the same. In both cases, it comes down to the management of thermal resources in an urban area. One Rotorua resident appearing before the Environment Court was consulting engineer Jack Just, representing the Rotorua Bore Users Association, and it was part of his submissions that recalled a turbulent time in recent local history, events which have echoes heard to this day. The oil shocks of the 70s led the government of the era to encourage Rotorua industry and residents to use cheap local thermal energy. By the early 1980s, fears were being raised about a decline in geyser activity at the country's most important visitor attraction. Between 1982 and 85, the then DSIR studied the problem and produced this report, not immediately made public. The report confirmed the decline and some of the recommendations became known.
There was guidelines given by DSIR to the government suggesting a course of action which involved closing all the bores south of a fault line called the Inner Caldera Boundary Fault, which is, for layman's purposes, Sala Street, and that bores north of the Inner Caldera Boundary Fault should reduce their take, and that at least half of the fluid that they were withdrawing from the field should be re-injected back into the field.
But the Labour government of the day decided, for their own reasons, to increase the recommended area of closure to a 1.5 kilometre radius of the Rotorua thermal valley. People living in the affected area were aghast.
A lot of people had gravitated to Rotorua, people on fixed incomes, people who were sick, who had arthritis, who in some cases spent their life savings to get on geothermal so that they could have a relatively comfortable old age. And they were victims just as much as the rich were. The Ministry of Energy came up to a public meeting.
I'm Sandy Hodge.
Told us essentially what they were going to do. It's very hazy for me now. They, as a consequence of that, they issued notices and came up and commenced closures. They brought in well drillers from out of town who came in and literally enforced the closures.
The Rotorua bore closures were conducted with bureaucratic urgency and rigour that incensed a wide cross-section of the community.
Probably as big a cross-section of the population as there is anywhere else. There were rich people who could well afford a bore and well afford to be without a bore. There were people who were bloody-minded and going to keep their bore and waste the energy come what may. There were people who had a deep environmental concern, who wanted to do the right thing and were never given the right advice. Advice that government sometimes gave to some people, they did in one breath And in another breath, they told them that they were going to have their bores closed anyway. So they were inviting people to spend possibly $10,000 or $15,000 on upgrading a bore that some other part of the government was going to come and close down. And this is the sort of stupidity that we had.
This unhappy chapter in Rotorua affairs received full media attention, and it also attracted amateur cameraman Brian Taylor, who shot this graphic footage. Some closures early on were completed with little outcry. Police stood by as officials dealt with stunned property owners. Rotorua bore drilling experts declined closure work in sympathy with who had been recent clients. Outside contractors were engaged by energy officials. With them came security guards. Eventually, on Moncur Drive, things turned a little tetchy. On this property existed a large and efficient bore that fed around 60 houses in the vicinity. Here, the Ministry of Energy were dealing with more than one isolated property owner. As so often happens, the local police were the meat in the sandwich. Where you have lawyers, you have paperwork.
Are you refusing to produce any license or experience qualifications for Brown Brothers?
I'm not required to, right?
Are you refusing to do so?
I'm not required to.
I'm asking you, are you refusing to do so?
I'm trying to, I'm not required to do so.
Regardless of whether you think that you're required to produce it, I ask you now to produce it.
I'm not prepared to produce it.
They lied about their report on Franklin's bore and they closed that. They dropped 3 steel rods down there. They only grouted to 148 feet of a 1,000-foot bore and then lied about their bloody report. And it's been re-drilled out. They dropped the bloody steel rods. The bore is 1,000 feet. It's on the front page of the Hill.
The operators from Brown Brothers began to get a hard time.
I am requiring you to do your duty. I am obstructing nothing.
You have a copy of the authorisation of my bore manager.
Basil Walker is a liar.
You are now obstructing me in my duty.
I'm not obstructing anything. I would please like you to carry out your duty here, and in doing so, I require that you provide the correct documentation.
But rules have been set by you people and now you're breaking them yourself.
Rules have not been
already
set.
Earlier in the day
Recommended
at the same level.
Recommended procedures have been set, and we are now working on our judgments on the spot to the total satisfaction of my requirements.
What we're saying is, and I do take Trevor Pritchard's view on this, that he's got no pressure on you to do this. The speed is not the essence, state safety is.
I agree entirely.
Then
That
why won't
speed,
you take
I
another
agree
couple of hours
entirely
and pull
that
those
speed
last
is
two
not of
rods
the
out?
essence. Safety is of the essence. I'm saying that to waste another 2 hours endeavouring to get those pipes is not a necessary part to contribute to the safety of that operation, one iota.
Someone else got a hard time as well. Here's Mr. McCaffrey from the Ministry of Energy getting it in the neck.
You are a bloody liar! We consulted with you all the way through, John. Get rid of her. John, you answer the question. I want the question answered by you. You answer the question.
You have to stand forward and I bet to the people you work for them.
Yes, go to the police.
I'm telling you, Sally, that's where your legs are. That's unfair. Bloody hell.
You're not New Zealanders.
You work for the people.
Go to bloody Germany or something.
There was growing dissatisfaction also with the way Brown Brothers were doing the job.
To try and get the remaining bores together
the Boer owners, remaining Boer owners together, and have them all agree to close their bores voluntarily.
Right, that's what you said.
Okay, listen. No, close their bores voluntarily, at which stage get a hold of Mr. McCaffrey and suggest to him that the Brown brothers be removed and the local and competent well drillers, yes, being the Rotorua well drillers, be called in to close the bores at that stage instead of the Brown brothers, and he said the issue of compensation at that stage would look a little bit better.
Oh, lying.
There was millions lost. There was, we reckon in property values, the enforced closures cost this town in $20 million at least. And that doesn't include the cost of the bores, and it doesn't include the cost of the reticulations.
The whole matter has been handled in a most incompetent manner. The resulting social problems and individual rights have been totally ignored. And I say to Mr. Butcher and to Dr. Walker, show us the evidence. Hey! Let the truth be known. Let the truth be known. Let the truth be known.
The sight of normally staid citizens in a state of uproar was too much for some.
Yes, get out of Rotorua, you horrible fuckers! Causing all this trouble with the government? The government is better than you.